Comey and those famous memos. We are getting word now that there might have been more people that he shared those memos with, more leaking.
I see no credible claim by any serious person that violated the law.
I think Mr. Comey's troubles in his 15 pages of memorandums, which were a rather lengthy suicide note, is committing suicide publicly every day.
Mike Pompeo primed to take over as Secretary of State. The crucial vote happening today as the White House issues a stern warning to obstructionist Democrats.
Conservative duo Diamond and Silk will testify before a congressional committee today where they will discuss allegations of censorship on Facebook.
Kanye West officially melted the internet.
He said, "You don't have to agree with Trump, but the mob can't make me not love him."
The one thing that we will celebrate is our right to think differently. I don't understand what's so controversial for the left to understand this.
All you have to do is wait a second. Your hands on mine. The clock is ticking, so stay.
Well, I imagine he's up already. The President of the United States will be joining us at 8 o'clock. And we're thrilled to have him call into the show, especially with his busy schedule. On tap today, he's got a lot going on. As he says goodbye to Emmanuel Macron, he's got to go home to France. And in comes Angela Merkel tomorrow from Germany, and a lot of stuff in between.
And today's his wife's birthday. Melania's birthday.
So the clock is ticking 1 hour until the President of the United States joins us live right here on Fox and Friends. We asked you to send us any questions you would like us to ask him. We've already received questions from Kevin McCarthy, the guy who follows movies. He wants to know the president's favorite favorite movie of all time. And Catherine Herridge just sent us a question asking if we will ask him about James Comey, who leaked those confidential memos to his pal, the professor at Columbia University.
Speaking of Comey, speaking of Catherine Herridge, she has broken a story this morning saying that James Comey might have leaked those memos to more than one person. We know about that professor that he gave special clearance to at the FBI that's also an attorney. We know about him. But now Catherine Herridge is reporting that memos were more widely shared, maybe with Patrick Fitzgerald, his friend, a U.S. attorney, special counsel, now Comey's lawyer, and not ruling out a third person.
Wow, that's pretty. It's pretty important to find out because this story spreads, and I think one of the bigger stories is that Daniel Richman, the Columbia law professor, had security clearance. He was basically a volunteer, had a pass to get in and out of the FBI building, so he wasn't just calling people randomly. I remember James Comey said on the beginning of his book tour, with his first interview, George Stephanopoulos, he said, "When I looked out my window and saw all the media on my driveway, I think, how do I pick one person to give my memos to? So I just thought I'd call my pal at Columbia University." It turns out he probably didn't deliberate that way.
And then he said last night with Anderson Cooper on that town hall that he didn't leak. What's your definition of leaking? Do you think that he did?
Right. Well, you know, he was probably saying, you know, it's a criminal leak if you leaked something super
Classified.
top secret. But then that would be why somebody got out the story this past week that apparently this guy, Professor Richmond, had the special government employee access, which is interesting because there are 35,000 people who work at the FBI. So why did he have to give to Mr. Comey, give to that special guy the leakage? In fact, there are a lot of people who say what he did broke the law. And tonight, Bret Baier is going to be interviewing Mr. Comey live here on the channel. And in fact, Mr. Comey kind of previewed that last night on another channel.
And I should have said this to you before, Anderson, because the facts matter here. I'm going to be on another network tomorrow that thinks I should be in jail. The memos that I gave to my legal team after the unclassified memo to Dan Richmond went nowhere besides my legal team.
Well, we're about to find out. Keep in mind, too, one of the questions to him, I think for some of the audience, was actually from Anderson Cooper. He asked him a question. He goes, "I can't answer that. I have to go to my attorney." He goes, "Are you lawyering up?" He goes, "I guess I am."
He's got three lawyers.
His attorney, one of his attorneys is Patrick Fitzgerald. So if there was nothing to worry about, if he didn't do anything wrong, he's certainly taking precautions.
Right. Three members of his legal team, and one of the others is the professor as well. So isn't that interesting?
And the interview with Bret will be tonight at 6 o'clock. You need to watch. Bret's going to ask him some very tough questions. And I think James Comey is trying to soften the blow because I'm sure he's a
think?
little nervous.
No kidding.
Saying they hate me, they want me in
Well,
jail.
I don't think he had any idea that this story would accelerate like it did when he wrote the book and released it when he did, with Andy McCabe getting a criminal referral and discounting what he said. They both can't be telling the same story. Then with all those all his memos are now released thanks to Republicans forcing the Justice Department to act. So he's going beyond what he listed in his book,
Well,
and I think it's got him on his back foot.
I will say I'm glad he's coming on Fox. I'm glad that
Absolutely.
Hillary wouldn't do that. We asked her during the campaign. Remember, she kept saying no. So I'm
Sure.
glad he's said yes.
He's
to us.
being very careful.
Yeah.
There was a big important tweet out. Did you see it yesterday? The President of the United States tweeted out that he's going to be on Fox and Friends at 8 o'clock this morning. And then he also retweeted some of Kanye West's tweet love. And keep in mind, the day before, we had heard up here in New York City from Hot 97, one of the DJs, that he had talked to Kanye. And Kanye really does like the President of the United States. And yesterday, Kanye West made it very clear, he's right, I do.
He said, you don't agree with Trump, but the mob can't make me not love him. We are both dragon energy. He is my brother. I love everyone. I don't agree with everything anyone does. That's what makes us individuals, and we have the right to independent thought.
I asked Alexa what dragon energy is. I got nothing. So maybe I'll ask Siri a little bit later.
Fire in their belly.
Right, I guess so. But I've never heard that thing. But then again, I'm not as creative as Kanye West. He actually tweeted this picture out, my MAGA hat, signed by Donald Trump in his very distinctive way.
Yep.
And then President Trump tweeted back, "Thank you, Kanye, very cool." And then it was game on. What I also thought was interesting is Chance the Rapper also in support, not necessarily saying Donald Trump's my man, but Chance the Rapper came out and said,
That's coming up. He said black people don't.
Yeah, black people don't have to be Democrats, which is a theme that we're starting to see build.
Well, here's the thing. After you've got Kanye West, who is very popular in popular culture, coming out and saying he appreciates Donald Trump.
His company's worth $1 billion, he says.
That's right. So many people then started saying Kanye West is crazy. He's out of his mind. He's got to be mentally ill if he would support the president. And if you were watching late night television, a lot of you weren't because you're up early in the morning. We put together a little montage of how late night comics reacted to Kanye West's love for President Trump. Watch this.
Kanye West tweeted that he and Trump are brothers and, quote, are both dragon energy. Trump responded saying, very cool. In a related story, Trump just made Kanye the new secretary of Dragon Energy.
Kanye tweeted a photo of his MAGA hat signed by Trump or an EKG. I'm not sure. The president then retweeted that with his now famous acronym MAGA, and just like that, Kanye West became our new Secretary of State.
I independently think that Kanye has lost his mind. You know what, Kanye? You know what? Donald Trump is your brother. It is true. I am your brother, too. And brother to brother, I just want to say, put the phone down.
See, unlike Stephen Colbert, Kanye West doesn't need to like or dislike the president to be successful. If Stephen Colbert didn't come out against President Trump, 9 people would be watching. So he's able to just grab those people that hate Trump, and they know where to go exactly.
It's a cottage industry now. Of course, this whole Kanye West thing got started a couple of days ago when Candace Owen, the communications director for Turning Point USA, was responding at a town hall to some Black Lives Matter protesters, and Kanye then tweeted out, I like the way she thinks.
Yep. So then this is what she has said most recently.
Once they enslaved our bodies, the Democratic Party, but today they have enslaved our minds. They have told us who we must love, who we must hate, what we must think, what ideas are unacceptable. And in the long run, it just doesn't add up. Listen, I think differently. Kanye West thinks differently. I can guarantee you if he and I get in the same room, we will have a lot of disagreements. But the one thing that we will celebrate is our right to think differently. I don't understand what's so controversial for the left to understand this. The way that they have demonized him in the last 72 hours is almost sickening, but at the end of the day, it's going to have adverse effects. I can guarantee you that.
I think it is, because the message is in support Donald Trump is, can I think as I want? Can I speak
Without
out,
being hated,
as
right?
I say, without being hated? He
Or
says,
a
I don't
mental
agree with
patient.
everything he does, but I like his approach to things. The other thing I think is important is Republicans used to have the so-called African-American vote for over 100 years. They gave it up and haven't tried to get it back. I'd love to see a strategy to try to get it back. They always want to get the Hispanic vote or the female vote. No one ever talks about trying to get the black vote on the Republican side.
I just think it's interesting that the tolerant left is not that tolerant of people who have an opinion. It might be contrary to somebody's,
it's different
but
than
then
the-
to say, obviously the person's crazy. If you don't think like me, that's troubling.
Yeah, you know what I think is crazy? That Jillian doesn't think like me, but I'm not going to judge her.
Nobody thinks like you.
Thank you. I think that might be a good thing.
This is not breaking news. This is very well known.
Or else we would have heard saw the animation.
Yeah, that's true. Good morning to you guys. We do have some news that we're following, starting with this Fox News alert. Right now, a nationwide manhunt for the man who gunned down a sheriff's deputy in cold blood. Police say John Williams killed Corporal Eugene Cole in Norridge Walk, Maine, and stole his patrol car.
Many times we're able to say that there is not an ongoing threat, but that's not the case today. There certainly is an ongoing public threat. He needs to be, he's considered armed and dangerous.
Cole was a 13-year veteran of the department. He leaves behind a son, also a sheriff's deputy. Cole's murder comes one day after 2 Dallas officers were shot. One of them, Officer Rogelio Santander, was killed. The parents of a sick toddler taken off life support by a court order, now threatening to prosecute doctors for conspiring to murder. It comes after a failed last-ditch appeal to send Alfie Evans, from the UK to Italy to treat his degenerative brain condition. Alfie's dad says if the toddler dies, he will sue everyone involved. He's now asking to take the 23-month-old home. Former President George H.W. Bush moving out of the ICU. He's now in a regular patient room, alert and talking. A Bush family spokesman joking he's more focused on the Houston Rockets than anything else. His son, former Florida Governor Jeb Bush, says his dad is a fighter.
The guy is stronger than an ox. I hope you'll pray for my dad. I am not objective about this. I am totally biased about it, but I believe he's the greatest man alive, and I want him to stay alive for a little bit longer.
Well, Bush was hospitalized for a blood infection the day after wife Barbara Bush's funeral. That's a look at your headlines. Send it back to you.
And 41 has made it very clear he wants to go to Kennebunkport this summer. And when he puts his mind to something, he always accomplishes.
And I think his Rockets clinched the series, by the way.
They did.
Right?
Yeah.
All right. There you have it.
They won by substantial, I think, 24 points.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Jillian.
Thanks, Jillian.
All right. James Comey says he's not a leaker.
I didn't leak memos. I intentionally gave this information to a friend, intending that it be out in the media.
What does Congressman Jim Jordan think about those comments? He's going to react next.
Well, that's Corey Lewandowski. He's going to join us live coming up.
Don't forget the president, 8 o'clock.
I didn't leak memos. I asked a friend to communicate the substance of one unclassified memo. I intentionally gave this information to a friend, intending that it be out in the media. I wanted it to get out in the media.
Right.
As a private citizen, I could do that.
That's Daniel Richman, more than a friend. He had a security clearance who was working for free for the FBI. James Comey denying that he leaked anything when he gave those memos to his buddy, who also worked for the FBI on an unpaid basis. This, as we learn more about those memos that were even shared with possibly more people. GOP Congressman Jim Jordan sits on the House Judiciary Committee and joins us now. What's significant about that exchange for you?
Well, first of all, James Comey never told Congress that he wasn't just leaking this information through a friend to the New York Times. This friend was a special government employee. SGE had access to the FBI. We presume he had full clearance, so he didn't disclose that. And frankly, there is no one on Capitol Hill who thinks this was the first and only time James Comey used Daniel Richman to leak information to the press. My guess is it happened lots of times.
Congressman, did he have deniability, being that he had, if it is in fact true that he had security clearance and we have it confirmed, you're not leaking because you're leaking to somebody else who had the same clearance you have?
No, and we don't know if there was classified information in what they leaked either. So we don't know the answer to that. But a leak's a leak. A leak is when you take information and give it to the press. Call it what you want. Say, oh, I was no longer an employee because I'd been fired a few days before. Say what you want. But he didn't fully disclose. The only way we learned about Daniel Richman having this special government employee status at the FBI was when we deposed Jim Rabicki, James Comey's chief of staff, in December. That's where the staff on the Oversight Committee learned that he, in fact, had this special status at the FBI and was, in fact, an employee.
Wow, I could really dig in here, but I want to get to this other topic. James Comey said something else in his town hall yesterday about your party.
I've been embarrassed and ashamed by the way the Republican Party has abandoned one of the two things that led me to consider myself a Republican in the 1980s when Ronald Reagan was president. I was attracted by the notion that character matters and values matter most of all. That's where you start in evaluating a person, an entity, a country. What are their values?
So, because those who support Donald Trump have embarrassed James Comey, your reaction?
Well, this is ridiculous. The American people are so fed up with this two standards, one standard for us regular folk and different standard if your name is Clinton, Comey, Lynch, Lerner. That's what American people are fed up. And the fact that 5 of the top people, this is what should concern Mr. Comey. He's been fired. Andrew McCabe has been fired for lying 4 times, 3 times under oath. Jim Baker, former chief counsel, has been demoted and reassigned at the FBI. Peter Strzok, deputy head of counterintelligence, demoted, reassigned. Lisa Page, FBI counsel, demoted, reassigned. These are the top people at the FBI. That's what he should be concerned about and what the American people are rightfully concerned about. And I would also add, the American people thought the fix was in on the Clinton investigation, but since we got a hold of the Page Strzok text messages, we know the fix was in. So that's what should concern James Comey. This idea that he's embarrassed is just ridiculous.
He just insulted 44% of the country because that's the president's approval rating. And by the way, which is going up. So only James Comey knows what's right and wrong. That's the message I'm getting. I look forward to hearing more. Congressman Jordan, thanks for getting up with us.
You bet. Thanks, Brian.
All right, 10 minutes before the bottom of the hour. Remember this moment from when Mark Zuckerberg testified on Capitol Hill?
You recognize these folks?
I do.
Who are they?
I believe, is that Diamond and Silk?
That is Diamond and Silk.
Yeah, today it's Diamond and Silk's turn, but first they join us live. They'll be going to Capitol Hill.
Here's some quick headlines for you. A political group slammed for snubbing the First Lady on Facebook. The Lubbock Democratic Party in Texas cropping Melania Trump out of that now viral picture from Barbara Bush's funeral. Wow, the original shows Presidents Clinton, Obama, and both Bushes, along with Hillary Clinton, Michelle Obama, Laura Bush, and Melania Trump. The group says it was posted by accident.
Yep.
And the First Lady is spending a few weeks in New York, but it's not what you might think. Madame Tussauds unveiling a brand new wax figure of Melania Trump. Do you think it looks like her? This is at the museum in Times Square. It will move to their Washington, D.C. location in June. And speaking of the First Lady, today is her birthday. Happy birthday.
Right, indeed. Meanwhile, today, 2 of President Trump's most vocal supporters heading to Capitol Hill, Diamond and Silk, will testify to the House Judiciary Committee about their long battle with Facebook over censorship.
But the social media network itself will not be there. Joining us now is Diamond and Silk. What is going through your mind right now with everything that lays ahead of you? Did you ever think you'd be going to Capitol Hill?
No, but what I can't believe is that we're not going to see Facebook and Twitter and YouTube sitting right in front of us. You know, it's really sad that they try to dismiss our concerns as if we are just some piece of whatever. But the mere fact that they can't face us proves that they're guilty.
That's right, and that's what cowards do. They run from the truth because they don't have any answers for their lives.
That's right, because if you're sitting at the same table with the people from Facebook and you just turn to them and say, hey, why are we dangerous to the community? What are they going to say? Homina, homina, homina.
Absolutely. Exactly. They have nothing to say. But we are excited about going up there, testifying, presenting our evidence, and stating the case about censorship and conservatives being censored all over the place.
What were you planning on saying to Facebook before you found out they're not going to be there in D.C. to testify?
Well, I still want to say it.
Say it.
I got a feeling you will.
I still want to say it. I still want to make sure that I let them know that we were being censored.
That's
Why
right.
did they target us maliciously and deliberately do this to us? Because of what? Because we support the president? Because we're patriotic? Because we're black women? What was it? What was the reason? We want to know.
We're still waiting on an answer.
Well, a couple of things. Number one, what about the reports that have not been confirmed that Diamond and Silk were misidentified? They got you confused for somebody else. That's why you were banned.
For 6 months, 29 days, 5 hours, 40 minutes, and 43 seconds, we've been back and forth with Facebook on this one issue. How did they get us wrong, get us twisted?
We have 1.2 million followers back then.
Yeah.
Okay? No, they didn't get it wrong.
No,
they knew what they were doing.
They knew it.
Well, they got to spin it the way they got to spin it. Are you back to normal? Do you have normal status now?
Well, we see some engagement, but we also see a lot of complaints where we're not showing up in people's news feed and they're not getting their notification that we have dropped our video or our content.
That's right. We also see a big decline. All of a sudden, everything has gone down.
Wow. Diamond and Silk, one last question. Kanye West back in the news, but I think this is the most significant line of the whole exchange with the president. Chance the Rapper tweeted out, "Black people don't have to be Democrats." Isn't that what you've been saying?
We've been saying this here for almost 3 years. We see these people coming out talking about independent thinkers, free thinkers. We've been telling people from the beginning, you don't need them thinking for you. You don't need anyone spoon-feeding you a narrative. You can think for yourself. So shout out to all of the independent thinkers and shout out to Kanye West.
And just because you're black doesn't mean you have to vote Democrat.
That's right.
All right, Diamond and Silk, who are not in their normal Diamond and Silk World Headquarters location. They're in our nation's capital because later today they're up on Capitol Hill. Ladies, thank you very much and good luck to you.
Thanks, ladies. Good luck today. You're welcome.
bet.
Still ahead, an inside look at one of America's most elite law enforcement teams going after MS-13 and other gangs. Look at this.
Marshall's job is to grab the body. We've been the U.S. government's manhunter since 1789, and we're the best of the world at it.
The exclusive ride-along you won't see anywhere else.
Plus, James Comey admits he gave memos to a friend in hopes they would make it to the media, but he says he's not a leaker. Really? Corey Lewandowski is here to react.
How's
in
it
the
going?
big room.
You did leak memos. I mean, is it okay for somebody at the FBI to leak something, an internal document, even if it's not classified? Isn't that leaking?
Well, there's a whole lot wrong with your question, Anderson. First, I didn't leak memos. I asked a friend to communicate the substance of one unclassified memo. I intentionally gave this information to a friend, intending that it be out in the media. I wanted it to get out in the media.
Right.
As a private citizen, I could do that and did that, just as I've written about it in my book.
Oh, really? Somebody else who's written a book is Corey Lewandowski, spokesperson for America First Action, and of course he co-authored Let Trump Be Trump. So which part of that soundbite montage would you like to unpack first?
Well, all of it's a lie. You know, this is the most important thing that the American people have to remember. When you're an FBI agent, not just the head of the FBI, but an FBI agent, you sign a form that says, I will not leak any information I've obtained as a member of the FBI without the written authorization of my supervisor. Very important. Now, the written authorization of his supervisor would have been the Deputy Attorney General, the Attorney General, the President of the United States. Jim Comey has now admitted, both under oath and in public, that he's taken information he received as the director of the FBI and gave it to a media outlet with the explicit indication that he wanted that in the public domain. There has been no accountability for Jim Comey whatsoever for not, at minimum, breaking FBI protocols, but very likely he gave away classified information when he wasn't allowed to do it. And there has to be accountability here.
Well, the spirit of what you're saying is correct, but technically, if he gives to this guy Richmond, who happens to have a security clearance that gets him an unpaid role at the FBI and gets him in the building with a pass, is he actually leaking to the media? Richmond leaked to the media, but does he have deniability that he didn't now?
Well, look, you're cutting something very, you're slicing the apple very uniquely. And the bottom line is, Jim Comey knew the information that he was giving to somebody else, the explicit goal, and he's been very clear, was to make sure that this information was put out in the public domain. So somebody has given out classified information to the media, and there's been no accountability. And Jim Comey said, the reason I want to give out this information is to put pressure on the Attorney General to recuse himself because there is no process in the protocols to require the Attorney General to recuse himself other than public pressure, and that's exactly what Jim Comey did.
Do you think he would have released those memos if he hadn't been fired? Was he taking these memos just in case the president figured out that he didn't like him, and he did the memos? He never did memos with Hillary Clinton or anyone else, just with this president, and then he releases them when he's fired as a sore loser?
Well, that's exactly what he did. Look, Jim Comey and his team interviewed Huma Abedin, Cheryl Mills, not under oath, but interviewed them. Never took memos from it. He never took any memos from extemporaneously from when he spoke to Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton or anybody, or Loretta Lynch, right? But all of a sudden, he feels such a compelling incident where the first time he supposedly meets with President Trump, he relays information about a false dossier, forgets to remind the president that it was actually paid for by the president's political opponents here, and says that really wasn't my job. But I'm going to go back and take a memo and write this for future use. Look, Jim Comey's a bad guy. What he's doing right now is profiteering off of his tenure in the government, and there
While
has
an
to be
investigation is going on.
And what we've seen now is Jim Comey, his number two, Andrew McCabe. The IG report that came out against Andrew McCabe was very clear. The IG has now said that he believes Andrew McCabe has lied 3 times under oath to the FBI, 1 time not under oath. Look at the very small footnote at the bottom of the IG report. Do you know what day Andrew McCabe was lying to the FBI? May 9th of 2017. Why is that day significant? It's the same day Jim Comey was fired. It's the day that Andrew McCabe becomes the acting director of the FBI, and the IG is saying that he is lying under oath. Why has he not been prosecuted? Ask other people who have lied to the FBI. And I guess what they say is, even if you're not under oath and you lie to the FBI, it's still a felony. Andrew McCabe has now been accused 3 times of lying under oath, and there's not been 1 charge filed against him yet.
Referral.
It's not there yet.
Very troubling to have liars and leakers at the top of the FBI. Meanwhile, the president would like Admiral Ronnie Jackson to head up the VA. But over the last couple of days, there are all these unsubstantiated allegations. 2 pages Democrat senators have circulated about bad stuff he did. It sounds like the White House is standing behind him. However, the president has made it clear, you know, I don't think, if I was him, I don't know, I'd want to put up with all this junk.
Well, look, this is the reason most people don't want to serve in the government. You've got Admiral Jackson, who served our country honorably and admirably, both in times of war and now for 3 different administrations in the White House. Never have these accusations been brought before. He served under the Obama administration, under the Bush administration, now under the Trump administration. He's passed 3 FBI background checks. He's passed a Senate investigation in the past when he received his first star. He's up for his 2nd star. And all of a sudden, you have unsubstantiated, undocumented information, and they've maligned this individual. And look, one of the accusations against him, if you can believe this, is he missed a telephone call one time. They claim he was drunk and he missed a telephone. Maybe he overslept. Maybe he was on a different call, right? These accusations are so egregious.
Who's behind him?
Look, I don't know who's behind it, but I'll tell you this. To malign somebody like this, a military officer who's serving his country with distinction, where are the people from the Obama administration? Look, David Axelrod has come out and said he's a good man. And I know David spent 8 years in that building and worked with him and never saw anything. But to have these unnamed sources saying that he's overprescribed prescription drugs, he's destroyed a government vehicle, look, that would be fairly easy to verify, is my guess. I've only met him a couple times. He's been a very rational person. I mean, I don't have a lot of interaction with him because I don't work in the building. But this is one of the major reasons why people don't want to go into government service.
Right.
And this is a good man.
The thing is, too, is that John Tester, who comes out trying to tell everybody in his state that he really likes President Trump and he goes to bat for him because he's a Democrat in a red state, has led the charge of unsubstantiated rumors to defame this admiral who decides during the heart of his career to go to Iraq and lead a 12-person surgical team in the worst fighting this war has seen. So this guy has already done more in his life than most will ever do.
But he didn't take a phone call.
Right, because he missed a phone call or crashed a car. Both things would have come up in 3 background checks, but didn't.
Well, that's exactly right. And you have to remember, this is an individual who's chosen to have a very good job in the White House and said, you know what, I will take the next step. I will go and help the VA because as an active duty military officer, I'm sure he's got a lot of friends who've left, who've had support and needed support from the VA. He sees a broken system. And I think a man who has a medical background, who understands the military and the needs of those military officers after they leave, to have better care from the VA would be a great choice.
The headline is, though, like you said, it's no one wants to go into public office anymore because you're scrutinized. If you have one flaw in your history, in your background, you're doomed.
No, that's exactly right.
Well, there are these 2 pages. We're actually asked the president about it in 20 minutes. Corey, thank you very much.
I love being the warm-up act to the boss.
Yeah, I think you'll be all right with that. You didn't break anything, so you did all right.
That's right.
All right,
Hey,
20 minutes
Jillian,
now before the top of the hour.
what else is going on, Jillian?
Oh, we have a lot going on. Following a number of stories, guys, let's get you caught up on some of your headlines, starting with this. The suspected Golden State Killer now behind bars after decades on the loose. Police are arresting 72-year-old former cop Joseph James D'Angelo. He's accused of murdering at least 12 people and raping dozens in the 70s and 80s. But he wasn't a suspect until just 6 days ago when police made a major break using DNA.
We all knew as part of this team that we were looking for a needle in a haystack. But we also all knew that the needle was there.
A new book, I'll Be Gone in the Dark, renewed interest in the case this year. D'Angelo is being held on suspicion of at least 4 homicides. NFL players and owners slam President Trump at a secret meeting following these comments on anthem kneelers.
Get that son of a off the field right now.
According to the New York Times, several owners expressed concerns about those remarks and the fallout from the protests last fall. Patriots owner and Trump supporter Robert Kraft saying, quote, "We have a president who will use that as fodder to do his mission that I don't feel is in the best interests of America." Several players also blasting owners for not hiring Colin Kaepernick. A newborn at home means little to no sleep. I know a lot of you can relate. Well, that's even true for royal dads. Prince William appearing to nod off during a church service 2 days after he and the Duchess of Cambridge welcomed their 3rd child. The royal family has still not announced the newest prince's name, but I think everyone can relate to that, right?
Well, did he nod off, or was he deep in prayer?
Maybe, but it's kind of funnier if we go with the fact that he was asleep.
Probably.
All right. Thank you, Jillian.
What do you think the name will be?
I'm still going with Rocky. Brian.
It's Rocky or Billy. I think that or Billy. All right. Meanwhile, next on our rundown, I hope you have the same one that we do. An inside look at one of America's most elite law enforcement teams going after MS-13 and other gangs.
The marshal's job is to grab the body. We've been the U.S. government's manhunters since 1789, and we're the best of the world at it.
The exclusive ride-along you won't see anywhere else. Next.
Plus, Democrats are taking a hard left ahead of the midterms. So what message do Republicans need to send? We're going to talk to an Iraq war vet and U.S. Senate candidate from Michigan. John James is coming up.
Summer's here. Bring it on.
All right, taking on MS-13 and other violent gangs operating on our southern border.
Fox News getting an exclusive look into an undercover project with the U.S. Marshal Service called Operation Triple Beam.
Jillian Turner is live in our nation's capital with an inside look at the big takedown. Jillian?
That's right, guys. So the U.S. Marshals are the oldest federal law enforcement agency in the entire nation, and today they're taking on the most violent gangs, the 59 Bounty Hunters, Tango Blast, the Bloods, Crips, and MS-13.
So hopefully it's going to be a one-stop shop, get all 3 in custody.
The U.S. Marshal Service invited Fox News to join the hunt for some of the nation's most dangerous criminals in Houston: gang leaders, drug dealers, fugitives, and human traffickers. On today's agenda, capture 3 capital murder suspects. Mission accomplished.
The marshal's job is to grab the body. We've been the U.S. government's manhunters since 1789, and we're the best of the world at it.
Fox News was with the Marshals as they staked out an armed robbery suspect hiding out at this apartment complex. The Marshals think of themselves as America's sheriff and constable all rolled into one. They're currently running Operation Triple Beam, a joint effort with state and local police to take down major gangs that proliferate along the border. Houston Chief of Police Art Acevedo told Fox News cartel activity on the border leads to increased crime in his city.
We know we have people and drugs that come north, and going south we have guns and cash.
President Trump's made taking on gangs a centerpiece of his Homeland Security agenda.
It is the policy of this administration to dismantle, decimate,
and eradicate MS-13.
Gangs thrive in the border region by generating revenue any way they can, selling drugs, illegal firearms, and running trafficking rings.
Well, we always have high numbers on the border.
In essence, Triple Beam's a franchise operation. The Marshals bring it from city to city, working one location for 90 days at a time. They expect Houston to yield several hundred arrests. Over time, the strategy has produced some major results. Since 2010, more than 6,000 arrests, the seizure of 1,500 illegal firearms, more than $1.5 million in cash, and over $6 million of narcotics. The acting deputy director of the Marshals explains the mission is spread out across the country in order to rout out gang members wherever they are.
Whether it be MS-13 or any other gang, these gangs are terrorizing our communities.
The Marshals say they strive to stay outside the fray of Washington politics, and after spending time with them, I'm happy to report they're succeeding. They're really just in it to get the bad guys. Ainsley, Brian, and Steve.
All right.
Thank you
Thank you very much. John Roberts is reporting that apparently Ronnie Jackson is pulling his name from consideration for the VA. This is a Fox News alert. The President of the United States is going to be joining us 12 minutes. We'll get his reaction live.
They had a late huddle last night to decide about it, whether it was worth it for everyone involved to go forward. I guess they decided against it. All right, plus, Democrats are taking a hard left ahead of the midterms and even the 2020 election. So what message do Republicans need to send? We're going to ask Iraq War vet, U.S. Senate candidate John James next.
We're back right now with the Fox News alert breaking right now. Ronnie Jackson, the Admiral, is out as President Trump's pick to lead the Veterans Affairs Administration. Here with a quick reaction is John James. He's a U.S. Senate candidate from Michigan. He's also an Iraq War Army veteran. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
So Ronnie Jackson just issued a statement. He said, going into this, I expected tough questions about how to best care for our veterans, but I did not expect to have to dignify baseless and anonymous attacks on my character and integrity.
Character assassination is a classic trick used by the Democratic marketing machine to impugn lifetime servants like Admiral Jackson. This is why we don't get the best talent into Washington, and we're seeing the results of this by some of the gridlock that we're seeing. I believe that I'm running because I have a passion for service. I'm a combat vet who understands national security. I understand how to create economic opportunity, and I believe that this type of mob think led by the liberal left has a greater threat to our democracy than any foreign army.
All right. We scheduled you to talk a little bit about going into the midterms, what the message will be for the Democrats. And we're going to put some of the ideas they've come up with lately up on the big board. Bernie Sanders, who loves free stuff for everybody, he would like to guarantee a $15 job for every American. Cory Booker announced the Federal Jobs Guarantee Development Act, which would call for the Department of Labor to select up to 15 areas to institute a job guarantee. And then a fellow by the name of Andrew Yang is suggesting that universal income, everybody gets $1,000 a month regardless of what you do.
So here is one of the big reasons I'm running. I believe that I present an opportunity to broaden the back of the elephant to include millennials and minorities the way no other candidate can. Because what you're talking about with what you just brought up is mortgaging our children's futures. And when I talk to college Republicans and high schoolers all over the state of Michigan, I say the torch will not be passed, it must be taken. Right now, we have a critical situation right now. We need to move forward. And also for minorities, being able to think freely. We don't want free stuff, we just want a fair shot. And when given the opportunity to think for ourselves and compete, we will win.
Well, when you do the thinking, you got to wonder, okay, that sounds great. I'd love $1,000 a month.
Right, but who's going to pay for it? Yeah, of course.
Exactly. Who's going to pay for it? They don't answer that question, do they?
Because they can't answer that question. You have people like Bernie Sanders in Washington legislating a future that they will not be a part of. And I have 2 little boys, and I have an obligation as their father to protect them. We just have to be good stewards of the amazing country we've been given, because this country doesn't belong to us. It belongs to our future generations.
So you've got the Democrats pushing an agenda that is further to the left than what mainstream has seen for a very long time. And then you've got yesterday with the Kanye West back and forth on Twitter, you've got it very clear that some on the political left want to demonize anybody who supports the president just because they know that people will be less likely to say, yeah, I think what he's doing is a good job, because they don't want to be tagged as mentally unbalanced, as many people have suggested that Kanye West is out of his mind.
In an era when mental health is such a serious issue, by trivializing it like this is terrible. But the biggest thing is a free-thinking person is a threat to the Democratic marketing machine that poses itself as the only solution for America's. When you take God out of government, then you make government your God, and that's exactly what the liberal progressive left want. I believe in faith and family, God and country, and service before self, and I'm going to be fighting for our conservative values in Washington.
Well, right now you're fighting for a job. You would like to be the new senator from the great state of Michigan?
Yes, sir.
Sir, thank you very much for joining us live. All right. We are going to step aside. I don't know if you heard, but in about 3 minutes, Donald Trump is going to join us live from Washington, D.C.
Lift me